Welcome, everybody, on into the sixth episode of the Bold and Bearish Talk Show, where I talk all things Chicago Bears and sports news. It's been a while since I've talked to you guys. We've got quite the season to talk about so far. Let's get right into it. Welcome to the show.
And he's in for the touchdown.
3 yards in the first down.
The 25 to the 20. Great run by Chad. The sideline inside the...
Before we kick off the fine line details and say, the numbers and all that good stuff, I just want to take a moment and say thank you to Ryan Poles. The success so far is so much due to the fact of all of these offensive linemen that he has brought in. We have easily a top 5 offense in the NFC, if not top 3. We are currently sitting at 9-3, top of the NFC North, top of the NFC as a whole. I also want to take a moment to recognize Ben Johnson's impact that he has had on this team so far. He has totally changed the culture of this team. Not only of the team, but of this fan base as well. You talk about the right guy for the job. He wanted to come in on the offseason. He promised culture change, and he delivered on it. When was the last time that we had a Chicago Bears coach make that big of a promise and actually uphold the end of the deal? Now, we could sit here and talk about the issues that we've faced throughout the year, some of the inconsistencies on offense, anything like that. But when you break it down and you take it a little bit slower, and when you don't just look at the box scores, when you actually watch these games, this is the skill level out of this team that we knew was capable. We were being held back by terrible coaching, terrible play calling, whatever you can think of. We had the problem. When you think about last year's record of 4-12 or 4-13, whatever we ended up, we have up to now in week 13, we have lost less games than we won last year. Think about that for just a moment. We have lost 3 games this year. We only won 4 total last season under Eberflus. When you take all of those things, wrap them up, it is a successful outcome when you bring in a coach that cares, a coach that wants to succeed, and a coach that shows accountability and also makes his players show accountability. When first game of the season, Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson, the question was, what will they look like 3 weeks into the year, 5 weeks into the year? Week 1 against the Vikings, nobody knew what the offense was going to look like. It was a good game, but we kind of struggled a little bit in the second half. But that one game, the competitiveness and the drive that Caleb showed and the drive that the team showed to try and stay in it until the very end, we didn't have that last season. Ryan Poles brings in Ben Johnson. Ryan Poles brings in these new offensive linemen to try and build a protective culture, not only as an offensive line, but as a veteran presence with all of these guys who have proven their success, proven their skill. You take everything at face value when you can in the NFL, and you never apologize for succeeding. This was not a thing last year that we had. We struggled so bad on both sides of the football last year. This year, we're 9-3. We've had unsurmountable injuries And we are still finding ways to win with this new team, with this new coaching staff. So, I just wanted to get that out before we go into anything further. But let's go ahead and now we can get into more of that info that we were just talking about here. And now, well, would you look at our Chicago Bears? After their most recent win against the Philadelphia Eagles, that makes the Bears 9-1 in their last 10 games. Number 1 in the North, number 1 in the entire NFC. We are the first seed in the NFC for the first time since I can ever even remember. And we hear it every week. The Bears are still a bad team because they haven't beaten anyone worth mentioning. I have two things to say to that. They say we haven't played anybody worth mentioning, yet at the beginning of the year, before it even began, people were saying that they would be stunned if the Bears even won 5 games due to the contenders that they were going to be facing on their schedule. Now, fast forward 12, 13 games into the year, the Bears are 9-3. Aside from a couple weird losses, bad teams don't win 9 out of 10 games. Bad teams don't outscore the Super Bowl champions of the last year by over 2 scores. We actually went out into Philly on the road and put the belt to the defending Super Bowl champions. Okay? All 3 phases of the football. Defense, special teams, offense. We beat them in every category. Coaching, we beat them there. You know, the mindset and the players all working as one machine. Who'd have thought that going into this game, if you watch First Take, if you watch any show on ESPN, when they were talking about this game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Chicago Bears, there was not a single person who could have assumed that the Bears running backs were going to put up almost a combined 300 yards against one of the best defensive lines in football. That was domination. Jalen Hurts, up until the 4th quarter, we had held him to nothing. He got that early touchdown to A.J. Brown. They mixed the extra point. We kept a 10-9 lead. But, you know, we won, 12, 13 games into the year. The Bears are 9-3. Now they say it's because we have an easy schedule. Well, can't choose who we have on our schedule. We can only beat the teams who we have in front of us. And, bad teams certainly do not go out and start the season 9-3 after the previous season, finishing them off at like 4-13 or whatever their season record was. When the Bears are playing good football, the entire NFC is on watch, right? Nobody's watching the bottom NFC teams. Some people have already been eliminated from playoff contentions mathematically. And last year that was us. This year, it's a totally different scheme, totally different look, totally different coaching staff. When you look at our record, you cannot call it fraudulent. Because when you look at our record last year, and we played some bad teams last year also, the teams that we played last year would also be considered bad this year, But, we were ridiculed for losing those games. Now we're ridiculed for winning them. Bad teams don't win almost 10 straight football games after starting the season 0-2. That's just not a thing they do. And when you take a look at the coaching turnaround, take a look at the offensive turnaround, the playbook turnaround, that is all thanks to this coaching staff. That is thanks to Caleb Williams being willing to be coachable, willing to learn, willing to take it slow. Last year, Caleb was always under fire, always running around in the pocket, no offensive line help, always scrambling, trying to avoid sacks. This year, we have a top 5 offensive line in the NFC, possibly a top 5 offensive line in the NFL. You don't get that without the willingness to learn from these young players and the coaches and the veterans. All of us working as one machine. And like I said earlier, who would have thought that that would be the case 13 weeks into this season? Okay, so now we get into the good stuff. We're going to talk about game by game how the Bears have looked. Starting week 1, we played the Vikings. I believe it was at home. We did lose that game 24-27. We led 10-6 at the half, came back at the half. Nashawn Wright had a pick 6, made the game 17-6. Okay? McCarthy was able to come and rally back a little bit, threw some touchdowns in the fourth quarter, made it a close game. We ended up losing 27-24. Week 2, the Lions, still trying to figure out all the new faces. Caleb struggled in this one. He did. The Bears did lose that one 52-21. I was at a restaurant watching this game with a couple of friends. Our defense had some inconsistencies that game. I know we had a couple people injured, but that one was a tough loss there, 52-21 to the Lions. But coming back into Soldier Field against the Cowboys in week 3 at home, Caleb found his rhythm this game. I think the first 2 losses, we started 0-2 this year. First 2 losses were accountable to Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams trying to figure out their system. What are they going to play like? You know what I mean? So when we came in against the Cowboys, Caleb had a 60-yard touchdown to Luther Burden. We won this game 31-14, and it was dominance on both sides of the ball once again. Week 4, against now that's kind of what started our little win streak here. We started 0-2, won against the Cowboys, and going into week 4 against the Raiders, Max Crosby was a force. He was all over Caleb this game. He was putting pressure on him. Caleb had to escape sacks a couple of times from Crosby. We blocked a field goal to win that game 25-24. Now, that one was a scary one. It got down to the wire. They were within, I think it was within 40 yards. It was a chip shot for Daniel Carlson, basically. One of the best kickers in the NFL, most accurate in the NFL, one of. He kicked the ball too low. Our lineman got his hand on it and was able to block it. We won that one by the skin of our teeth, 25-24. But now week 5, we're going in to a bye week. This was a great time for a bye week. It allowed us to regather ourselves going into our game against the Washington Commanders, a revenge game from what happened the year before. This was a good reset for us because it allowed, we were 2-2. We were at 500 going into the bye week. That was the best case scenario for what we started with. This was a great time for a bye week. And it helped us big time because they came into that game against the Commanders and they put up a revenge turn The heartbreaking loss on the Hail Mary last year, we pulled the W out 25-24 again in this one. Jake Moody, I think, kicked the game-winning field goal. And then that made us 3-2. And people are like, okay, we're gaining some momentum going into the game against the New Orleans Saints, expecting to win this game. The Saints were 1-5 at the time. Bears hadn't lost to a 1-5 team since 2015. So we were going into that game expecting to win. It wasn't even a close one either. We won that one 26-14. Spencer Rattler threw like 3 interceptions or something like that. That one wasn't even a worry. So that made us 4-2 going into the Week 8 game against the Baltimore Ravens. We faced them without Lamar, but we also had 0 starting corners on defense. So it just kind of went back and forth until the fourth quarter. The Ravens kind of pulled it away a little bit. We did lose that game 30-14. Going into Week 9 against the Bengals. Now, this game was a roller coaster. If you were watching this game live, almost 100 points scored. Colston Loveland with a gorgeous game-winning touchdown. Beautiful throw by Caleb. Colston bounces off his defender. Maybe he bounced off of 2 defenders and then takes it like 40 yards to the house. We win that game 47-42. Joe Flacco, old man Flacco, threw for about 450 yards, but we still were able to get that job done. So that took us into the Week 10 game against the Giants. Now, at this point, we are currently 5-3. And this game was a strange one. We didn't know how they'd play. Jackson Dart in. I don't think Scatabo was playing. So we did win that game 24-20. Jackson Dart had a rushing touchdown. I think they took the lead first. And we fought hard. We came back and we won that game there 24-20. Now, Week 11 game, going back against the Vikings, this was definitely a revenge game for us. J.J. McCarthy sucks. That's all I have to say. We won 19-17. We got our get back. Week 12 against the Steelers. Heavy defensive game. They had a strip fumble in the end zone on Caleb Williams for a touchdown. We had a fumble recovery and an interception on our side on defense. Like it was a big turnover game. Not really for us though. Caleb didn't throw any picks that game, I'm pretty sure. So we did come out on top of that one, 31-28. That made us 8-3 going into this most recent game against the Eagles. Pure dominance. Nobody was picking the Bears to win. Our offensive line dominated them. Our defensive line dominated them. Great win, by multiple scores, 24-15 against the defending Super Bowl champions to put us, into a very, very good spot to make the playoffs here. And when you even being able to say that we're even in the realm of playoff conversation, that right there alone is enough to know that we made the right choices in the offseason here. And, we'll get more into that obviously here shortly, but, you think the worst coming into this year because of how last season went, and it's just completely flipped around. There is a lot to be happy about this season. All new coaching staff, great new playbook, defense, offense, both the line and the players playing as one team. We haven't had that for years. Culture in the locker room completely changed. Culture on the field completely changed. Fan base culture completely changed. Our defense right now leads the league in takeaways. Who would have thought that? Dennis Allen loves coaching this group of guys. Dennis Allen talks about all the time in interviews how much he loves coaching this defensive unit. And it makes Bears fans happy seeing coaches being happy to coach their guys. You know, this is our first winning season since 2017, 2018. You know, we are finding ways to win as a team. Caleb Williams developing amazingly as a quarterback under Ben Johnson, day in, day out. You know, he's improving. He's learning. You know, it's getting to the point that we have to start taking the Bears as serious contenders for the postseason push and potentially further. Watching the Bears has definitely been scary at times this year, but, you know, it's been fun regardless. So when you take all that into consideration, you know, up to this point, we're happy. We're 9-3 through the first 13 weeks. That's what we're happy about. Nobody can take that away from us. Nobody can take away our early season success and our mid-season to late season success right now. The key is to just keep it moving, keep it going, and keep our heads up, noses on the grindstone, you know, keep it on going. But now focusing on the last half of the season, we are on to the last 5 games that we are going to be playing. We play the Packers December 7th, which is this coming Sunday after this video has been posted. And we are on to the Browns at Soldier Field, which I will be attending this game in person, so that will be a good time. I'll definitely take videos and pictures to post in episode 7. And then we're back at Soldier Field again to play the Packers again. So that one, so we got Packers, Browns, Packers. Then they throw the 49ers in there after the Packers game. And then the Lions is going to be the team that we finish out the year on. So I believe realistically, we go 1-1 with Green Bay. I see the potential of 2-0. But I realistically think we'll probably go 1-1. We'll split the games with Green Bay. I don't have a doubt in my mind that we're going to beat the Browns. And I think we beat the 49ers. The 49ers, they're kind of hit or miss. You know, their offense kind of still trying to find its identity other than just giving the ball to Christian McCaffrey. You know, who knows who's going to be healthy for them, who's going to be injured for them. So we'll get to that game when it comes. But we have a ton of potential to beat the 49ers for sure. And the Lions game, last game of the year. Right now, that looks 50-50. So I believe that we go 3-2 over our next 5 games with a very real chance of going 4-1. I would not be surprised if we finish out the next 5 games 4-1. But I will be more than happy with 3-2. That will put us at 12-5 and guarantee us a spot in the playoffs for sure. You know, our goal is to win the NFC North. Our goal is to win the division for the first time since 2018, right? That's what we want. If we even just make the playoffs, if we even can do that, I as a Bears fan and everybody else as Bears fans will be thrilled. So when you take that into consideration, look at everything at face value. We have definitely our toughest stretch of games ahead of us with the Packers twice, the Lions, and the 49ers, because those games could go anyway. But I definitely think we have the true potential of going 4-1 with a realistic potential of 3-2. But Bears fans, with all that being said, thank you for tuning in to yet another episode. Drop a like and a comment. Subscribe if you have yet to do so. And until next time, I'll see ya. Bear down.
By 10, the sideline inside the